Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. So today's video we're going to be talking about sort of a theory craft, sort of hypothetical army theme that you could go for, that when you originally say it sounds kind of ridiculous, but then when you actually work it through actually comes out quite interesting. And we're going to essentially be talking about the concept of running an all-flamer Imperial Guard army. Okay? Now before we get into the main meat and potatoes of this video, I just want to say a big, super huge thank you to Mike Charlie for providing me with these pictures. These are pictures of his Tanith first and only. And I think it's not only Tab, I think there's, looking at some of the pictures, it looks like there's some sort of like Volpone Blue Bloods in there, some of the Vervenhivers, and I've read the Gaunt's Ghost books up to the bit where they actually fight, spoiler alert, where they actually fight alongside the Living Saint, the Reincarnation Saint Sabbath, I think it's like the 6th or 7th book. But I think after that there is like another regiment they get merged with, because they get merged, the towns get merged with, like the Vervenhivers get merged with another regiment. So I think there's basically I think his army, Mike Charlie's army, from what I can see of the pictures, it's made up of all the different regiments that appear in the Gaunt's Ghost books, which is absolutely fantastic, really, really cool, because the Tanith models themselves, when you could still buy them, RIP, when you could still buy them, they only had like 4 models, like a plasma gun guy, a bagpipe guy, a sniper guy, and like maybe a las gun guy or 2, and then you had Commissar Gaunt himself. But yeah, that's so, it's kind of interesting. It's a really, really, really cool army. I really like it. And I think the paint scheme on them is really, really good. And I like how you've given sort of the Volpone, the Carapace armour, and you've given the Tanith, lots of beards and the mixture of like Cadian and Cadian bits. I think it's really, really cool. And this sort of army, these pictures, like you said, did actually sort of prompted this video, because the Tanith are quite famous for using flamer weapons. Their sort of preferred special weapon. Obviously, they love their snipers, they love their scouts, but in the rank and file, the preferred special weapon is a flamer. And that got me thinking about using a pure flamer Imperial Guard army. So literally what I mean by a pure Flamer Guard army is every possible unit that can take a special weapon should be taking flamethrowers. And the only weapons you should be looking into are flamers and heavy flamers and inferno cannons. Now some of you would be saying, well, this is absolute madness, because you need anti-tank. And it's like, yeah, you're kind of right. But then it's also a bit like, this is 8th edition. Do you really need dedicated anti-tank? And the answer is maybe, but not for sure. I mean, 8th edition, everything can wound everything. And what separates the good armies from the bad armies, one of the biggest things, is the access to -1 to hit modifiers. So a lot of guard armies struggle against things like Eldar and Alpha Legion and Raven Guard and pretty much when Dark Eldar use like Lightning Reflex and stuff. -1 to hit modifiers really, really cripple a guard army, because we're a shooting horde army, and I've said this before. It's a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing because we're the only shooting horde army out there, really. But it's a curse because when something can negate our shooting, we're toast. Like, it's really difficult for us to do anything about it. But an all-flamer army, it's like, well, flamers automatically hit. So it doesn't seem like... It actually seems like a really effective army. Because one, the fact that you're running all flamers all the time is going to force you to get close to the enemy anyway. Which means it's going to force you to want to get within 12 inches. So it's going to really incentivize you to A, get within range of a lot of these -1 to hit bubbles. And B, it just completely negates the biggest weakness of the Guard, which is we've got relatively mediocre ballistic skill. Now, I'm not saying we should all go out there and equip ourselves with loads and loads of flamers, but again, the way I would run this concept army, and it is only a concept. This is a bit of a rough and ready video, but it's one of these ideas, putting this idea out there and seeing what the community feedback is, basically. And then, you know, someone else who comes along and watches the video later, they could they could see the army, they could see the video, they could read the comments, they could see if the idea actually works. My thinking is that I don't want to stray too far from what I was talking about. You don't really need dedicated anti-tank in 8th edition, because everything can hurt everything, and heavy flamers and inferno cannons, which the Imperial Guard have a very easy access to, are all AP -1 and they're all strength 5, which means even the toughest targets out there, you're winning on 5s. And AP -1 is surprisingly, the difference between a 3+ save and a 4+ save is very, very high. Okay, you wouldn't really think about it, but think about how tough a Space Marine is versus how tough a Scion is. You know, it's very easy to kill a Scion in comparison to killing a regular Space Marine. Yeah, obviously there's like T4, T3, but the general principle still applies. So, you would literally grind the enemy down. You would melt them down in just an absolute blizzard of fire. And it just seems like it's kind of abusing the way 8th edition works. Now, the way I would run this army is naturally I would go with Catachans. Okay, naturally you want the Catachans because you want to have is the 3 reasons why you want to check Catachans. Well, 4 reasons. 1, fluff. Catachans love flamers. Okay, you want the Catachan doctrine. 2, Catachans have the burn them out stratagem, which allows you to, when using a flame weapon, you can reroll the random number of shots if you need to. On top of that, Catachan vehicles already get to reroll the number of shots you get from or roll 2 dice and pick the highest for number of shots from a random shot weapon like a flamer. So 3, the fact that because you're going to be running up close to the enemy, you're going to be taking casualties, and you're going to have ways of getting around morale. And Catachans get +1 leadership for being near their officers, and you're going to have officers. You're going to have officers, so that's really effective. And 4, the Catachans their natural strength 4, because what you're often probably going to find is you're going to go up to the enemy, flame the bollocks off them, and then get in amongst them with some Catachan steel. You will find yourself doing that because it's the way the Catachans play. And I think it could be, again, it could be really, really effective. Now, how I would play this is I would try and spam as many heavy flamers as possible. I think heavy flamers are the key to success in this army. Regular flamers are okay, but the issue is that they are only really strength 4 and they don't have any AP. So I would definitely try. I would have regular flamers. You're going to need regular flamers, but I would definitely have lots of heavy flamers. I'd have veteran squads with heavy flamers and shotguns. I would have hellhounds with inferno cannons and heavy flamers. I would also, I can never remember. I think it's the Bane Wolf is the one with the chem cannon. Okay, because I never use it, I'm always like, which one is it? I'm just going to Google it now just to make sure. Bane Wolf, blah 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 blah. Chem cannon. Yes, chem cannon. Bane Wolf. Because the Bane Wolf is really interesting because it's basically like having a heavy flame, but it wounds any infantry on 2+. So that's really, really good. So you will want Bane Wolves in that army, without a shadow of a doubt. you will want heavy flamers in the army. You will want hellhounds, and you will want to be catching all the way. Now, the reason why I'm saying Bane Wolves is, unlike hellhounds, they don't explode in a 4+. They only explode in a 6+, which is really important when you're thinking you're going to be charging up to the enemy. Now, how I would play this is we're going to be trying to get heavy flamers. We're going to have regular flamers, but we're going to be trying to get heavy flamers and special flamers, as I'll call them, like inferno cannons and chem cannons. But you're going to have to appreciate the fact that even in 8th edition, most armies are shooty armies with a little bit of close combat. So you're going to have to find a way of getting close to the enemy. So you're going to need speed. Okay, speed is going to be key. So the way I would run this army is I would look at something like a brigade. Okay, because you're still going to need lots of command points as a guard player. We need loads of command points. It's one of our biggest strengths. But being in a brigade isn't a disadvantage, because you're not going to be forced to take anything you don't want to take. So how I would run the brigade is I would have 3 company commanders leading the force, and 3 junior platoon commanders as well. Because what you've got to remember is Catachans get +1 leadership when they're near an officer, any officer, whether it's a platoon commander or a company commander. So having some, platoon commanders are really good for Catachans. Really good, because it's a cheap way of getting +1 leadership. It's a really cheap way of getting +1 leadership, and you get an order out of it to boot. So you're going to want, you're going to want 9 officers. Okay, now you're definitely also going to want to fill out your troop section as well quite heftily. I would go, it's going to sound crazy, but I would go for more than the minimum. I would go for sort of maybe 9 infantry squads with flamer. And each one of those, basically, the way I'm looking at it is you're going to have, well, you're going to have 3 infantry squads per company commander, and his job is going to be, you've got to have 3 infantry squads per company commander, and remember, even though your company commander can only issue 2 orders a turn, you're going to take casualties relatively quickly, and so it's a little bit of redundancy. So when you lose your first squad out of each 3, company commander can use all his orders. Because I often find a big mistake a lot of people make with Guard in general is they take 1 order for each squad. That's really efficient at the beginning of the game, but what happens when you start taking casualties and you have orders left over, and you literally have orders and you can't use them? You want to have a few more squads than you have orders, so that when you start taking casualties, you're still able to give out maximum orders every turn. That's the way you get the most efficiency out of a company commander and officers in general. So you're going to want 9 infantry squads with 3 company commanders, each one with flamers. Then you're going to want 3 chimeras with double heavy flamer each, with a veteran squad with 3 flamers and a heavy flamer in each one, and shotguns if you really want. Doesn't really matter. You want 3 of those, and then you're going to. So you've filled out your HQ, you've filled out your elites, you've filled out your troops. Fast attack, pretty easy, guys. You're going to want I'd say you're going to want a couple of hellhounds at least, a couple of Bane Wolves probably. I'd say you probably want 2 to 4 Bane Wolves / hellhounds in any configuration that you see fit. Okay. And then you're also going to want some scout sentinels with heavy flamers. Okay. I know I'm a big fan of the armor sentinel, but you're going to want scout sentinels because they're a little cheaper and they'll be able to keep up with the main push by the hellhounds. You want to have like 2 waves. You're going to want your first wave to be your sentinels, your hellhounds, your bane wolves, and your Leman Russes. That's the last part. You want to take at least 3 to 4 Leman Russes. I would go with... sounds slightly counterintuitive, but I would go with Battle Cannon Leman Russes with 3 Heavy Flamers on each one. Now, the reason for that is it gives you... I'd take at least 3 or 4 of them. Now, I haven't worked out the points exactly here, guys, so obviously someone's going to come back to me and say, well, that's like 3,000 points. Okay, fair enough. But the reason I'm saying Cadian Battle Cannon Leman Russes is, again, to take advantage of the you can re-roll the random number of shots for your Battle Cannons. So that's really good. Even though some of you will be saying, well, keep in theme with it and go for, like, if you're going to be getting up close and personal, go for something like Punisher or Demolisher. No, I'd go for Battle Cannon with 3 Heavy Flamers. And the reason I take 3 or 4 of those. Now, the reason I do that, again, the Battle Cannon provide you. This army on the attack is all about getting up close, personal, burning them. But there will be situations, probably about 30% of the games that you play in 40k, where you're playing a full-on dedicated assault army. You know, masses of bugs, or just masses, you know, assaulting Marines, not assault Marines, but Marines on the assault, or Green Tide. And so this army will play very well defensively because of all the Overwatch you're going to get. But what the battle tanks allow you to do is they give you that 72-inch range, and they give you that ability to have a bit of tactical flexibility. So yeah, sure, a lot of your army is short-range flamers, but sometimes you just need a little bit of bombardment. Just a little bit of bombardment to give that, and if you don't have that capability, you will struggle. And on the plus side, you can always smash it up 10 inches a turn with your Leman Russes, and you know, you still fire your battle cannon with no issues. Grinding advance, your turret isn't affected by movement. I mean, you won't get 2d6 shots, but now, so we may be saying, why no tank commanders? Well, no tank commanders because you're going to be all flamers. Most of the, you know, the 3 out of the 4 weapons in your tank are flamers, so you're going to be wasting your Blister Skill 3+. And that's pretty much it, really. So that's it, really. That's my concept of an all flamer army. Obviously, it's a bit of a rough and ready concept, but I actually think it'd be really, really effective. And the best thing about it is most guard players out there, especially long-term players, can field this army kind of overnight. It's not something you'd have to work towards. Because every time you buy a squad of second-hand guardsmen, they come with a flamer or grenade launcher, normally a flamer. You know, every box of guardsmen you buy comes with a grenade launcher and flamer, multiple grenade launcher flamer options. So you're probably going to use those. You're going to have loads of flamer guardsmen. But the 2 waves I was talking about, sorry, I didn't finish a bit off. The 2 waves you'd have is your tanks would be your first wave, your second wave, and with your veterans and your hellhounds and your sentinels and your Leman Russes. But your first wave is hellhounds, bane wolves, sentinels, and mechanized veterans. And then if you need to include that in your first wave, you can send your 3 or 4 Leman Russes up with the heavy flames as well. But your second wave will be your foot-slogging guardsmen, who are going to be moving and moving, but they're going to be running up there. But also your tanks, because your tanks may only be moving 5 inches a turn if you really want to soften the enemy up with some battle cannon shells. You know, they'll get there eventually, but they're more there to do the bombardment. Yeah, and that's how I'd have a 2 wave, and I'd go all out on the attack. I'd go all out on the attack for like the first 3 or 4 turns, 3 turns, and then turn 4 I'd start hunting, you know, objectives to camp, and turn 5 I'd really dedicate to the objective camping. But the plan I would have is have as much going into that first wave as possible, keep the enemy tied up as long as possible, and let your infantry squads run all over the place, moving, getting objectives, and if they need to go on a second wave they can do. But otherwise they should be capping objectives whilst the half of your army is like a distraction force. 2/3 I'd say. Two-thirds of your army wants to be in the first wave. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it makes a lot of sense. If anyone's had any experience with running a pure flamer army, please let me know. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.